Welcome to Inner Healing Ministry. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me as we continue with our subject of domestic violence in Christian homes. In part 1 of this video, I talked about what is domestic violence, and we were able to see some types of domestic violence, and we covered control as a type of domestic violence, physical abuse as a type of domestic violence, and today I want us to cover sexual abuse as a type of domestic violence. So let's get to see exactly what this is all about. So when you talk about sexual abuse in terms of domestic violence, what are we talking about? So we are talking about sexual involvement where somebody is doing it in an exploitative fashion or forcing sex on another person. It may involve both verbal and physical behavior. So when somebody is using sex in an exploitative way to exploit the other person or forcing the other person, verbally insulting them, physically abusing them sexually, doing it in a way that is physical, in an unpleasant behavior, that is an indication of sexual abuse. Using force or coercion, guilt, or even manipulation, or not considering the victim's desire to have sex, overriding their will, forcing them, coercing them, guilt tripping them, manipulating them so that they get to do it, all that is sexual abuse. Exploiting the victim who is unable to make an informed decision about their involvement in the sexual activity. For example, because they might be afraid of the perpetrator. Like a child, when a child is exploited because they're unable to make an informed decision on their involvement in the sexual activity, because the child is afraid of the perpetrator, then that is sexual abuse. If a wife is unable to make a decision on whether to get involved in the sexual activity or not, because they're afraid that the husband will beat them physically or insult them as a result of probably refusing, when they are unable to make that decision because of fear, then the person who is getting this victim into doing this, they are exploiting them, and that is sexual abuse. Laughing or making fun of another's sexuality or body, making offensive statements, insulting, or even name calling in relation to the victim's sexual preferences or even behavior, it is tantamount to being sexual abuse. So laughing or making fun of another person's sexuality, laughing or making fun of another person's body, making offensive statements or insulting statements, name calling, and these are related to the victim's sexual preference or even behavior, that is sexual abuse. Making contact with the victim in any non-consensual way on any part of the victim's body any contact in a non-consensual way, that the person or the victim has not consented, and the person is making contact with the victim on any part of their body, including unwanted penetration, oral, anal, or even vaginal, or touching, stroking, kissing, licking, sucking, or even using objects. Any of that which is done without consent on any part of the victim's body, that is sexual abuse. Exhibiting excessive jealousy resulting in false accusations of infidelity and a controlling behavior to limit the victim's contact with the outside world. What that means is that somebody begins to show excessive jealousy, and as a result of that jealousy, they begin to accuse the victim of being involved in infidelity. And they are doing that as a form of manipulation, as a form of control, to make sure the victim does not get in touch with the outside world. That the victim is even afraid of going out, because they know if they go out, they will be accused of infidelity. So the victim is unable to go out. They're unable to connect with the outside world, and they're being accused of infidelity. So this kind of controlling behaviors that limit the victim's contact with the outside world, it is seen as sexual abuse. Why? Because the person is making the victim to feel condemned over something they're not even guilty of. They are being pushed to begin to feel like they don't want to do anything like going out, because the next thing that will come out of the mouth of this person, who is probably a spouse, are words like, you went out to sleep around, you have been sleeping around, you have been having sex with other people. So when the person knows that those are the kind of words that will come out when they go out, then they are unable to go out. So then that is sexual harassment, it is sexual abuse. Withholding sex from the victim is a control mechanism. This is where the perpetrator decides that they will not engage in sexual intimacy with this person, and maybe, let me say, a spouse, because that is where sex is supposed to be happening within the family. Sex is not supposed to be outside of the marriage, but we know it does happen. So whatever the case, then, if this person is withholding sex from the victim, is a form of control, even when the victim wants it, especially when the victim, especially when the victim wants sex, and this person is withholding it, the perpetrator is withholding it, then that is sexual abuse. So if you have identified any of those things, then you know whether you are a perpetrator of sexual abuse or you are a victim of sexual abuse.